Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be telling you the brief history of Harrison Ford's career before he finally made it big with his first big hit film, Star Wars. This is a very interesting story because it illustrates how this man went through so much and lived such a long life and did so many things and was struggling to make it by before finally, after he was in his mid 30s, when he finally made it big. And it's a story that proves that things aren't as it seems. People assume that a lot of actors, and some actors in fact do happen to end up lucking out, but this is a story of an actor who you think is one of those people who just lucked out one day, but no, this person, like my story on Ellen DeGeneres, uh, he went through a very long life, did a lot of things in acting, and still couldn't support himself, and finally made it big. So, without further ado, let me get into the specifics of the story, and go ahead and leave this video a like and hit the subscribe button if you're interested in pretty much this video. Anyhow, let's get started here. So, first off, Harrison Ford, he got out of his high school and he moved to Los Angeles, California to apply for radio voiceover careers, and he couldn't find one. Eventually, he ended up signing a $150 a week contract with Columbia Pictures to play small roles in films that he was often uncredited for, which was a pretty decent deal. It's not amazing money, but at the time, 1964, that was a lot of money. And, inflation adjusted, it's probably a good, decent living. So he's doing well, kinda, making it by. I would say he's probably making less than average with $150 a week. And he's going through all these films that no one's ever heard of, and he's not credited for them. And he learned something very important. He learned from another actor that even if you have a role like delivering a bag of groceries, you have to play it as well as you can. And so he felt like his job was to play the best role that he could, whatever the role he was given. And as the years rolled by, he spent the next 2 decades in quite a few films. And he started working for Universal Studios and did a lot of films in the 1960s and 70s. Many you've probably never heard of, such as Gunsmoke, Ironside, The Virginian, and on and on and on. And unfortunately, by the time it was the late 60s and early 70s, he was still not satisfied with what he had accomplished, and he knew it wasn't making enough money. And so what he did was he started as a carpenter. He wasn't making enough, and he taught himself how to carpet. And he became a professional carpenter to support himself. And I think this illustrates another great point, which is that oftentimes if you're fortunate enough to live long enough, you are given the time in your life to learn new skill sets and adopt new professions. And it's one of those things where I think society, by its nature, wants to force you into one pivotal role and typecast you as that person or that skill set for the rest of your life. And I guess one reason is because they want you to stay focused on that and get very, very good at it, and therefore achieve great results, which isn't a bad thing. It's kind of true that the people who are the best at sports or a certain skill have spent decades perfecting it. But still, Ford is another example, similar to Arnold Schwarzenegger. I did a video on him, on how these people were, one could argue smart enough, but more so practical enough to realize, hey, this acting thing, I can't just rely on it. I have to, like it or not, if I want to put food on the table and sleep well at night, I have to find something more stable to do along with acting. See, they didn't give it up completely. They found a solid career. Schwarzenegger in real estate, Harrison Ford in carpenting, and that allowed these people to have stable income while pursuing this risky endeavor. And if it paid off, great. If not, there you go. You still got the carpeting. And so here he was, and not only was he a carpenter, but he had a wife and he had 2 sons already. And so again, another misconception with this actor. You think that this is a man, Harrison Ford. If you've seen any of the early Star Wars movies, they were big blockbuster films, and he seemed so young in them, and you just assume in the natural Hollywood stereotype that this is a man who is very young. He just went into the Hollywood career, nice, handsome, single man, and he made it. But in reality, no, this man had been working. He had lived a long life, and he had not made it yet in Hollywood to that level. And he had already got a family and kids. And it's very interesting when you think about that. When you actually look at a lot of actors, for instance, the person who played Hulk in the latest Avengers film, he has a wife and a daughter already. Anyhow, so this is where it gets very interesting. He is hired as a carpenter to build cabinets for a man called George Lucas. I'm sure you know George Lucas, director, billionaire, creator of Star Wars. So he's just there in his home building these cabinets. And it's interesting how, oftentimes, not always, successful people will have some spark of luck that just really eventually made them where they wanted to go. But I think, as a disclaimer, a lot of people use that as an excuse. They're like, oh, these people got lucky. They're just lucky bastards, and I could never achieve that. And in reality, there's luck involved, but the people who are successful, most if not all the time, they're stacking the luck in their favor. So they're practicing their skill set and then just waiting for those opportunities where, if luck happens to strike them, for instance, meeting director George Lucas, he has all this skill set and experience and practice in acting to back up him getting a role. So yeah, that's what happened. George Lucas subsequently cast this man in a film that was not Star Wars. I think that's a huge misconception that you immediately meet this person and boom, everything flies. It's not always the case. So he gets cast for a film called American Graffiti, and then later on developed a profound relationship with Lucas that affected his career much later down the road. I think it's another great example is James Cameron and his journey, and how a lot of people think, boom, he made his first big film, Titanic or Terminator, and he's off to the races. And then he just makes Avatar, and then he's achieved the title of creating the top 2 highest grossing films of all time. No. James Cameron made a lot of films, sci-fi films as well, that you've probably never heard of before that. And he worked pretty hard. So anyhow, American Graffiti goes on, and then subsequently later on, he gets his later roles as in Star Wars. But before that even occurred, his relationship and his acting career just started to pick up. He got roles for decent films, small roles, for films you probably never heard of, The Conversation and Apocalypse Now. But these are films that's, they weren't that big, but they were developing his skill set. And so he was still working as a carpenter. And it's interesting because he literally came from his profession straight to the auditions. And he didn't even have time to switch out his carpenter clothing and his carpenter gear. And I think it was interesting because, at least based on what I've read, Harrison Ford actually did this on purpose in order to show the people he was auditioning for that he had other options in his life, and he wasn't relying or begging on this audition to make a living like the other people auditioning. So in that early period, it may have been a benefit because the people casting him couldn't manipulate him or bend him too much, because they knew, okay, this guy's not begging for any role he can get to put food on the table. And so that's the general story of Harrison Ford before he finally got onto Star Wars. And again, it's a very interesting, great story. And then obviously, Star Wars was not his only big film. Later on, he got Indiana Jones, huge production. And then after that, he got Blade Runner. And now he's in all sorts of ridiculous films. And I think it is very interesting, so much that he accomplished. And I think it's one of those things that people fail to realize. They think immediately once they hit a certain age, if they don't accomplish all these things, it's over for them. And that mentality can really just eliminate a lot of potential if you believe it and just give up. So I hope you got the right lessons out of this story, and unfortunately this is the abridged version. If you want to research Harrison Ford and learn more, you're welcome to learn and search it up online. It's a very interesting story. And I think the most amazing thing is that this is just one of the thousands, hundreds of thousands of amazing success stories out there that's very interesting if you would just take the time to find and read them. So open your own mind and get some inspiration. As always, like, favorite, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. See ya.